Hey, today, Big Sound Small Town is at the Merlefest Festival, and I'm with Tont Trischka. How are you, Tony?
I'm good. You pronounced my name correctly. You misspelled it, but you pronounced it correctly, so that's good.
Oh, that's good then.
Thank you.
There you go. So I just caught your set earlier on the main stage.
Mm-hmm.
It was very good.
Thank you.
But now this is the fifth or sixth time I've caught it, and it's always very good.
Well, I appreciate that. We've been doing it for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And it's always, not always, but almost, let's say frequently, I have different personnel.
Yes.
Depending on who's available, because I'm not doing this every single weekend.
Right.
I want to have a life, I want to have a life of
yeah.
my own. Anyway, I'm kidding around, but so, I have like 2 or 3 or 4 guitar players, fiddlers, et cetera, et cetera. I did this with Woody Platt from the Steep Canyon Rangers. We did a Southern Swing a little while back, and this time it's Casey Dreesen, Michael Daves, Jared Engel, and it changes all the time, and everyone knows the repertoire, and they're all amazingly great musicians, so I'm very fortunate.
I understand from the show today that you have a second volume coming out, too, of this.
Yeah, when I recorded the first album, we recorded 27 tracks, multiple tracks with Del McCoury and Billy Strings and Sierra Farrell and Molly Tuttle and Sam Bush and et cetera, et cetera. So we put 15 on the first album. There are another 12 that'll go on the second album. Plus, I'm going to record another 2 or 3 songs if everything goes the way I'm hoping. One tune was Sister Sadie, one of the Steel Drivers, and one with a group that I just saw up in New York, the Harlem Gospel Travelers. It's an amazing gospel group to do Life's Railroad to Heaven, which is another tune that was
great,
which was another tune that's in the jams with John Hartford and Earl Scruggs. So we're in the process. I've done some mixing already. We're setting up some. It'll come out the first quarter of 2026 is how it's looking now. So yeah.
So how has this project been? I mean, it's been good. We talked before, and you were telling me, and you might can refresh my audience about how this really came together, because this is a different portion of your career doing this, than being just a banjo wizard. This is like a whole concept thing.
It is. I'd say maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, I was working on a second Earl Scruggs book besides the first one with a gentleman named Bob Peekle, and once in a while he would just send me a recording of Earl and John Hartford jamming, and I'd go, where'd you get this? A tune we'd never heard Earl play before, Earl doing really interesting things. He sent me 2 or 3 of these, and then he sent me a thumb drive with over 200 of these tunes, and it was like a gold mine of, again, obscure things. It was basically what happened in like the mid-'80s. Earl had lost his son, and he'd been touring for years, and he just was kind of giving up the banjo. That's how I've heard the story. I mean, I knew that he had a tough time when his son passed, of course. And John Hartford was not going to let Earl stop playing the banjo, so he said, hey, Earl, let's start jamming. So kind of between 1986 and 1997, I talked to John's daughter, and she found the original tapes, and they were from around that time period. And John just said, hey, Earl, let's just jam. And they jam at Earl's house or at John's house. And sometimes a lot of the times it's just the 2 of them. Sometimes the 2 of them with a bass player. Sometimes you can hear Tony Rice in there, or Del McCoury, or Sam Bush, and so forth. But anyway, so I have this just giant amount of music. I started listening to it and hearing these amazing things that Earl was doing. Sometimes, again, tunes we'd never heard him play before, like Here Comes the Bride, which will be on the second Earl Jam album with Michael Cleveland playing fiddle and me playing banjo, and Sam Bush singing the lyrics to Here Comes the Bride in the voice of Harry Carey, the voice of the Chicago Cubs. Yeah. That alone is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. But anyway, so I started transcribing all these things note for note, the way Earl played them, and I decided these jams will probably never see the light of day for the normal listener. So I'm just going to record an album where every note I play is what Earl played, note for note, and because I learned so much. I thought I had a pretty good handle on Scruggs style, and I heard these things I'd never heard him do before, blues licks on Cripple Creek and things like that. So I just decided I'll record. Literally, I'm sitting there recording in the recording studio with a mic in front of me and banjo tablature there, so I can play exactly what Earl played. Everyone else, they could just play what they wanted, but I had to play what Earl wanted, what Earl had played, which is the whole concept, which is what I wanted to do, so people could hear even more of his brilliance.
One of the things when we talked last, you had your banjo, and I can't remember what it was, but you just played the part, and then it was the way Earl let the song end.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was totally different than what you would think.
Yeah.
Some weird stuff like that too.
There's so many little details like that in his playing. He would just come up with one crazy ending after another, just off the top of his head. There's sort of this one standard, shaving the haircut thing. And on Foggy Mountain Banjo, the banjo album that he recorded with Lester Flatt, he ends many of the songs just with that. But in these jams, he's doing incredibly different stuff. So anyway, his imagination was so fertile and just kept coming with new things.
Well, it's been great when you do these shows. I mean, I think it's been received well. It seems to me every time I've seen it, there's been a pretty big crowd and everybody's really enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I mean, I spent many years playing weird. I had an electric band for a while, doing weird stuff and, not getting on the bluegrass festivals as much here and there. And now I'm doing, finally, later in my career, I'm doing Earl Scruggs. It's bluegrass, and I'm playing real straight-ahead stuff. Now I get to play at these festivals.
That's really
which is really nice. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I always realized that you could play bluegrass, but you also took banjo to different places in your career, so that's kind of a full circle deal.
It kind of is, because I started with the Earl Scruggs, and then all these years later, I mean, I always would play Earl things and that sort of thing. I never let that go by any means, but really to do it as fully as this, it was just sort of this gift that I was presented with all this music, and it's just given me a whole new direction to go in, which I love. Totally.
Are you going to keep doing this? I mean, I guess you'll have a second one to support.
Yeah, I've got to be doing this for the next year and a half or 2 years. Then what am I supposed to do?
Well, what you used to do is play stuff that no one else can play.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I was wondering. You've made it clear to me. I appreciate that.
That's my first introduction to you years ago is one of the guys I played with he said, "You need to listen to this guy. He don't play like anyone else, So.
Yeah, no, I early on I started playing some weird things, and it wasn't that hard in those days to play something different because there were some different things. And I mean, Earl Scruggs was an innovator.
Oh, he was.
Big innovator. And then Bill Keith and Bobby Thompson, all of my heroes, Eddie Adcock, with the country gentleman. Bless his soul, yeah.
Eddie was a different musician.
He was. I ran into this young gentleman who was 12 years old, who's been at Baylor Flex Camp, and we got friendly. And he called me up one day and said, I just worked up this Eddie Adcock tune. And no one age 12, they're going to be listening to Earl or Bela or something like that. But he got into Eddie Adcock. And so I met him at this workshop I was doing out in Lansing, Michigan. And I was giving him a banjo lesson, and he played the song for me. And I said, "Hey, just a second." And I called up Eddie because this was like 6 months ago or a year ago. And I called up Eddie and said, "Hey, Eddie, you got to hear this." And of course, this 12-year-old was like,
that is amazing.
And he got to talk to Eddie for a minute. And then they exchanged numbers. And Eddie called him up out of the blue, 2 weeks later, and said, "Hey," they talked for an hour. And of course, Eddie was, not doing well health-wise at that point. So I think he just really appreciated having someone that young generation getting turned on to his music.
That is a real compliment.
Yeah.
Because his stuff is not readily as available as other people's stuff.
Not at all. And so this kid did great. He's like a really good banjo player. He's not just really good for 12 years old. He's really good. So anyway, it was a really nice moment.
That is pretty cool.
Doing that, yeah.
So you got any other projects you're going to work on other than this?
I'm in the midst of all sorts of things. I've got, I've just been commissioned to write a 5-minute chamber music, like a classical piece of music, I need it to get done by the summer. It's like clarinet, oboe, violin, viola, cello, and I've composed with banjo, of course, I've composed about maybe 2 minutes of it, and I've got 3 more minutes to go. You get paid by the minute.
There you go.
And it's going to be presented at this museum in Boston about a year from now, something like that. So, and I'm working on a project. I put music to poems by Emily Dickinson, this very famous poet who lived kind of from the 1840s to the 1880s. So I'm working on that as well, and probably put together a book of tablature of all these Earl Jam albums.
Busy man.
And I've got an online banjo school, so When do I get it? I thought I was going to retire at 65. I guess that hasn't happened.
I guess that's
though.
not gonna
No,
happen. I
okay.
don't think it's going to happen, period.
Probably not.
Tony, I appreciate you taking the time to do this today. It was great catching up.
Great catching up with you, too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.